a mutual dame made a flushes.app, which is an app where you make status updates while you're in the toilet. So it's like, I'm pooping right now, you know, had a solid taco earlier. It was pretty great. I'm reading right now. It's pretty good, right?
I was at GitHub Universe this year and I ended up like cornering Paul Frazee in a bar, just fire hosing ideas at him. I was like, oh my God, and then you could do this, and then you could do this. And I think he was kind of like, yes, I know. But I was having my realization. Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Web Dev Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Langsdorf. And today on the show, we're going to dig into one of the pockets of building for the web that I think has more excitement than I've seen in quite a while, which is this idea of building with the ATproto, or in the atmosphere. This is the protocol behind Blue Sky. So it's a really interesting time to be on the web because we're sort of seeing this push toward let AI write the code. You don't need websites anymore, all this other stuff. And I'm kind of seeing that as almost like a drain on morale. I'm not seeing people like excited to build. But then there's this pocket, there's this magical pocket happening where people are building on ATproto, and I'm seeing energy again. And I'm so excited to talk about it. Right at the heart of this is this really active community. And one of the most active community members out there is Zayu Kapua, who I have brought to the show today. So Zayu, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to have you on the show. I have been kind of following your work as you are building more and more stuff with ATproto. You are one of my kind of main sources of information on what's going on in the community. So I'm thrilled that you took some time to join us today. For folks who aren't following along, maybe start out by giving us a bit of a background on who you are, what you do.
Yeah, I'm Zayu. You could find me online at zayu.dev as my website, as well as my handle in the atmosphere, I guess is what we're calling it. That's the network around the app protocol, and we'll get into that later. But I'm a software engineer, mainly talking about websites and all that. So I'm very excited.
I am very excited about this. You know, I've talked about it a couple times, but I feel like throughout my career, I've been doing this for a long time, or we're over 20 years into the web. I have seen these moments where it feels like everybody is like, there's just energy. There's something happening. There's high potential, and people are like moving, right? The last time that I remember this really happening was in the beginning of the framework wars, like around React and Angular and all this stuff, when it was just sort of like exploding. Everybody was building a React framework or some new JavaScript meta framework. There was so much energy around that, right? And we kind of saw the same thing when the Gatsby era and the Next and the Svelte and Nuxt, and we were kind of inventing these meta frameworks on top of the established patterns. But then it's sort of tapered off, where a lot of the excitement doesn't seem to be about building. It's more like AI stuff doesn't feel like it's about building. It sort of feels like something different. But ATproto feels pretty familiar in that sense of like, I don't know, there's art here, there's excitement, there's a lot of passionate community members out there really building cool stuff. Can you talk to me a little bit about what drew you to it? Why do you feel like this is the right place for you to be putting your energy right now?
As you said, like right now, in terms of tech in general, there's a lot of like general cynicism, right, around like big tech, this big AI push, and in particular for more like non-technical dev people, the most visible thing that really affects people's lives is walled gardens. So that's your Facebooks, your Instagrams, your YouTube's, Twitter now, right? People have different ideas in terms of what moderation looks like, what policy looks like, and owning your data. For example, I saw a while back that somebody on GitHub got accidentally banned just by accident. And that meant that their entire code base, like all their repos spanning like a decade, was just gone. Now, granted, they had enough of an audience / enough people made backlash on Twitter that the support people were like, hey, oh, that was a mistake. We're going to reinstate you. But it was kind of a wake up call to a lot of developers specifically. That's like hosting your data in these platforms. It's not safe, especially when a lot of our lives, especially as web developers, a lot of our lives are online, right? So ATprotocol is kind of a shift in that dynamic. It's a protocol built on top of web standards like HTTP. It basically allows people to own their data while still being connected to others. And that's like the really special thing is because
Hmm.
we've had self-hosted stuff before. Going with the GitHub example, maybe they don't want to have Microsoft host their code anymore. Now we're going to go and self-host GitLab. But now that repo or the users on that GitLab, they're not connected to other GitLabs. And, now everything's kind of messed up, right? Like you don't have that like social aspect of GitHub anymore. And
Right.
something like ATproto kind of like bridges that gap where you can still self-host and own your data in your own servers, but the network allows you to connect with other people. So you can still have your same social graphs, no
Hmm.
matter where your data is stored.
And I think you just kind of touched on the part that like it was hard for me to initially get my head around. So I kind of want to spend a minute talking about this. But it was the spark that like I was at GitHub Universe this year and I ended up like cornering Paul Frazee in a bar and just fire hosing ideas at him. I was like, oh my God, and then you could do this, and then you could do this. And I think he was kind of like, yes, I know. But I was having my realization. It's But the thing that I find really exciting about this is like we've talked about decentralization forever. This idea of like own your own website. So you build your own website and then it's just kind of there, right? And we've got a lot of like partial solutions, but they never felt complete. Things like ActivityPub, which is the Mastodon stuff is so close,
Mm-hmm.
but it feels like it still kind of feels like you're operating in these like silos where they're connected until the silo owner decides to like not connect them, and then everything is broken
Right.
again, and you can't like migrate between them. It's very strange. There was stuff in crypto that was like almost there. I thought there was some really interesting stuff with the like the federated identity, but again, that like kind
Mm-hmm.
of put you in this weird spot where it's like, well, not everything's on crypto, and I don't know. So the thing that felt magic to me about the AtProto stuff is, so like I've got a website that's on uh, Astro, and if you've got a
Mm-hmm.
website that's on Nuxt, like I know Daniel Rowe was talking about this stuff, and no matter where you build, the AtProto stuff isn't like what you build on. I mean, actually, let's maybe clarify this.
Yeah.
How is it different? Like, why am I excited about this when things like ActivityPub and other solutions like didn't capture my imagination this way? Do you have any kind of a differentiation?
Yeah, so they do go on this in the AtProto.com, their doc site. They have a page called the AtProto Ethos, which is like a written version of a talk given by one of the engineers. Basically, the idea is that the differentiator with AtProto is that it is just built on top of web standards. So there's not a lot of like crazy things happening. You just got servers that manage to do things. You got WebSockets to query the entire network. You have things called app views, which are just APIs. So you have like a fire hose that's just getting every event. You have something called like a relay on top of that, which is like another stream that you could
Hmm.
connect to. And then from there, you could collect it into an API called an app view where you could like filter through stuff. So maybe I only want Tangled. That's the Git social media website. I only care about Tangled repos. I only care about the dev side of the network, right? I'm only going to query that. I don't care about the rest of them. And then from
Hmm.
there, you could just use that as a general query, like for your app. That, or you could connect directly to a user's PDS, that's a personal data server. That's where they actually host data. So if you don't want to go through all that stuff, I know for a fact that Jason's post is on a specific server, I can just go and type it like a URL and then it'll give it to me. It's that open, it's that free. There's like no gatekeeping really.
Hmm.
Not at the moment anyway. Permission data is coming soon, but that's a whole other debacle.
Right. Right.
ActivityPub, the way that I understand it, it's kind of like that GitLab thing, as you said, where it's like a server owner not owns, but like hosts users, and then they have to personally go ahead and connect to other servers, right? And the analogy I was given was they are emailing each other, and that requires like whole server bits, right? So like 10,000 servers connecting to like a one user server, right? When you as
Right.
a person can just go in, kind of like a website, just type it in. And it's like, wow, it served it to me on its own.
The thing that I think is interesting about this is that it's very like emergent behavior where it's
Hmm.
not one centralized group saying this is the protocol and this is how it works. It's
Hmm.
sort of like here's the like I know Blue Sky was maybe definitely the biggest implementation, if not the first. The structure of it was like, okay, so there's a Blue Sky lexicon and a post looks like this and it's got these fields on it and all that kind of stuff, but there was never a rule that said you couldn't do like other lexicons. And so the first ones that I remember seeing were Tangled and Leaflet, where they just sort of
Hmm.
invented their own lexicons and you namespace it and you can say, okay, this is what Leaflet uses to publish a blog post, or this is what Tangled uses to talk about code diffs or repos. You can just sort of put whatever you want in there. And then as the consumer of the
Hmm.
fire hose, which is just sort of a generic data stream, like you said, you get to choose what you want, but like you can choose anything. Like on my website, if I'm listening to the fire hose, I can pull in what's going on Blue Sky, or I could filter to just like when people talk about my website on Blue Sky, or I could filter
Hmm.
to Tangled stuff that's about a topic that I'm interested in. Like if I'm writing about JavaScript, I could see filter the Tangled feed for just JavaScript. And if I want to do something like I can publish my own lexicon that's namespace to my own website and just put it out there in the world and say, hey, this is what I got. And if anybody wants to
Yeah.
use it, they can, right? I find
Yeah.
that fascinating because I'm not restricted to like what can I do with RSS as it's like very strictly defined. I'm
Right.
not I'm not restricted to what can I do with the Twitter API or what can I do? You know what I mean? Like it seems like all
Hmm.
these other approaches have sort of said, well, you can use this data, but like you can't modify it. You can't add extra stuff. And it just feels like the ATproto ethos is, well, do whatever you want as long as it follows the like lexicon structure. And we'll, yeah, like
Yeah.
we're not going to consume, like you're not going to be able to publish to Blue Sky with my custom JSON.energy lexicon, but like I can make it and somebody else can subscribe to it if they want to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the
Mm,
lexicon thing is an amazing piece of the infrastructure because as a community, everyone gets to decide like, okay, this is the most useful lexicon for this data type, right? Like
mhm.
Mutual Dame made a flushes.app, which is an app where you make status updates while you're in the toilet. So it's like I'm pooping right now. It, you know, had a solid taco earlier. It was pretty great. I'm reading right now. It's pretty good, right? Like you could have that. Leaflet, you were talking about blogs. Not only did Leaflet do that, but Leaflet actually teamed up with two other platforms on the app protocol. They all came together and was like, hey, we're all making blogs. Like we're kind of like targeting different users, but we're all making blogs, right? So what if we make a standardized lexicon? All three of us platforms use it, and that's standard.site. And so now,
Hmm.
no matter what platform you use, whether it's Leaflet, Packet, which is PCKT, or Offprint, in the future, I believe they're still on waitlist. Or even if you have an Astro site, there's currently a plugin that automatically turns your blogs into standard.site lexicons or records. There's also
Mm-hmm.
a CLI called Sequoia that does the same thing. So you don't
Okay.
even need a platform. If you already have an Astro blog, and you already have a blog, you already have all that markdown and stuff, you could just immediately transfer it. And now it's in a broader network. So like now everyone in Leaflet can find you without even being
Yeah.
on Leaflet.
And that I think is the coolest thing because I
Hmm.
I was thinking about use cases for like what I want to do with this tech, right? And
Right.
and one of the things I was thinking about is so we've got CodeTV. And on CodeTV, we have user profiles. You log in right now with OAuth, or you can use email password if you want. And if we add an ATproto login, we could just start automatically pulling in people's publications. So if your blog is on Leaflet or Packet, or you're self-publishing through standard.site or whatever it is, we could actually just kind of pull in some details about what you're writing right there on the CodeTV site. We could pull in some of your Blue Sky posts. We could pull in some of your Tangled commits if you're using Tangled. And that's just like a thing that we can do now. So my
Yeah.
like the CodeTV website has this ability to suddenly become almost like a social landing page for other people that's curated around the types of lexicons that are relevant to my best guess at what the Code TV audience is. And I don't have to build that integration. I just have to know how to listen to the lexicons. And to me,
Exactly.
that's a really fascinating thing. Like, I'm no longer scraping a bunch of APIs. I'm just saying, well, yeah, turn on the fire hose, filter for any of, the Code TV users all have these DIDs. So filter
Mhm.
for activity on the fire hose for these DIDs, for these lexicons, and then show that on the appropriate page. Holy shit, that's cool. Like, just
Yeah.
unbelievably cool that that's even an option, right? Like, imagine trying to
Yeah.
do that with any other platform. Like,
Y-
it's a very custom integration, as opposed to being able to say, well, now that I can consume ATproto, any new lexicon is just a matter of being able to display the data, not necessarily building an entirely new API thing or getting new developer keys or whatever it is. It's one thing, one. And actually, that brings up a good question. How
Yeah.
do API keys work on ATproto?
So right now, all the data is public. So as long as you know how to query the data, you can get any public data available.
So you can just straight up tap into the feed. You're not letting like some centralized force decide whether or not you can access it. You literally just have like access to I think it's a WebSocket feed, is that right? Where you're just getting real-time events and they just dump through your server as fast as you can query them.
Yeah, if you want to make your own like app view, which is the fancy word for API, yeah, you can literally just have your own fire hose, your own jet stream, filter through whatever you want, throw it in your database, and then query it like with GraphQL or something, and
Mm-hmm.
you're good to go. You don't need a third party app view. Now, like,
Right.
sometimes you want a third party app view. For instance, like if you're making a third party Blue Sky client, you don't want to do
Mm-hmm.
moderation for yourself, right? Like if
Sure.
you're a one solo dev. So maybe you use the Blue Sky app view to use their moderation.
Mm-hmm.
Black Sky is a full alternative to Blue Sky, and they have their own moderation as well. So if you have any qualms with Blue Sky, use Black Skies, right?
And there was like some controversy around that because there were people that got banned on Blue Sky,
Hmm.
but they're not banned on Black Sky, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So
And
yeah,
can we talk about how freaking cool that is for a second? That like you're not at the whims of like, well, I've lost my account forever because some mod doesn't like you. You are straight up like you can
yeah,
be on a bunch of sites at once, and like obviously if you're violating the terms of service of a site, you should get banned. But
yeah.
like maybe you're not violating the terms on this other site, and so people you don't like lose your history, and I think that's really really cool.
Yeah, everyone just got the one identity. So if one platform says, "Hey, we don't like you,"
Mm-hmm.
they'll throw a moderation label on you that says banned, right? Or suspended, right? But if another app view has their own moderation labels and it doesn't say that, then you just show up completely fine. And again, if
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to go through app views at all and you know that person exactly and you know where their server is located, you can query straight to them,
Mm-hmm.
like a normal server, and get the data directly from them. You don't need a moderator in the middle at all.
Yeah. So there's a couple questions in the chat that I think are good ones to talk about. So the first one is watching the entire network all the time seems a little wild, and doesn't that put you at high risk of spam? It does seem a little bit wild to just like have the fire hose turned on at all times. What is the approach right now for dealing with that?
There are way smarter people about like this distribution and stuff. But
Hmm.
my conception of it is that you can turn off the fire hose and then you could just do backfills. Let's say, I have the fire hose on, and then you maybe have a spam detector of some sort, right? You could
Hmm.
close it, and then maybe after an indeterminate amount of time, after all that was taken out of, or like maybe you have like, oh, this person is a spam, right? All their records, let's ignore that. You can open,
Hmm.
you could
And that's
open up the fire
moderation.
hose
Like
again.
that's
Yeah,
you deciding to moderate your own view.
exactly. And from there, you could just backfill. So whatever you missed while your fire hose was closed, it'll just like comb through all that, and it should
Mm.
be fine. Yeah,
And a backfill, to just restate that and make sure I understand it, is so you're not watching
yeah,
the fire hose, but you say, okay, the last time I looked at the fire hose was this timestamp or this unique ID or whatever. Give
Hmm.
me everything that matches my filters between that timestamp and now. And then it just sort of allows you to sort of populate your database at whatever interval makes sense. So that could be, I assume you could run it continuously, or you can run it once a day or once a month or whatever was important based on kind of how much activity you're expecting on your given lexicons.
Yeah, exactly. Like right now, I'm running a self-hosted service called Quick Slice, which is like a self-hosted app view thing, and it
Mm,
has a jet stream, a fire hose on there. At some point in time, it broke, and obviously, I missed like 2 days worth of publications and blogs, right? And I'm like, oh, I obviously need those. People are obviously writing, so I just pressed
mhm.
the get backfill button, and it just combed through and then did some validation as it was combing through the data. And then after a while, like it was like back up, ready to go.
That's extremely cool. And I mean, there's a lot of discussion that I've been following about how to manage, like, if you are doing your own app view or if you're trying to display data, like it's not necessarily like, hey, pull up the fire hose and run a backfill to the beginning of time every time you want to display data. You're kind of expected to, right? You're kind of expected to store the things that you need, like kind of build your own database so that you can query quickly and index things and kind of make
Yeah.
it useful for your application.
Yes. Yes. That is the idea. If you are running your own app view, you are expected to like pretty much just focus on your slice of the network. That way, you're not just getting everyone talking at every time, right?
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
for a blog with comments, if you're using ATproto, everyone owns their own comment, right? Like this isn't populating a database on my website. This is how does it work?
Yeah, so you would do that with references, like strong references. Kind of like how like you have like on a web page you just have links, right? Same thing. You have backlinks. So you could say like for example, I'm just going to use Blue Sky because it has replies already. The Blue Sky post, I made that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You come in and you want to reply to my post. That reply post is on your server. It's just referencing my parent post, right?
Mm-hmm.
You own the comment. That comment is theirs, yours forever. I cannot touch that comment at all. But if an app was to query my post and was like, hey, I want to look at every reply that is referencing this post, that is replying to this specific post, it'll go through the network and find yours. And it's like, oh my God, it's talking about this post by Zayu. It's going to show up.
Mm-hmm. I guess to repeat this back and just make sure that I'm understanding it, what we're saying is each of us has a PDS or a personal data server. And by default, I think most of us are using Blue Sky service for this because that's what we signed up with. And we've got the .bsky social
Mm-hmm.
handles, but most of us aren't setting up our own PDS, but we could set up our own server. I've seen alternative PDS services pop up. But the
Yes.
general idea is that I have created my account. I get my ID, a did,
Mm-hmm.
and my did represents like my collection of stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
inside of my PDS, referenced by my did, anything that I do is like a lexicon entry. So it would be like, okay, a bsky app.bsky.post or whatever it is. And then I
Mm-hmm.
say, it's in reply to this unique ID that references a post on your PDS, but then it has all the lexicon data to display a Blue Sky post. I'm basically creating a database of things of my actions, and any of the references I make might be to other people's PDSs. But the fire hose knows anybody who's using ATproto, it's consuming all of those PDSs. And so that's maybe the one thing that's the hardest for me to get my head around is like that's kind of the centralized point right now, right? Is to get into the fire hose, you have to make sure that the PDS you're using is recognized by the fire hose as a like valid PDS. So there's kind of like an
I believe
initial
so.
getting accepted into the protocol, right?
There's no accept per se.
I couldn't go stand up a local host and say, okay, now I'm a PDS and I'm just going to put whatever I want into the jet stream and like it would show up, right? Because it has to know to
I,
look at your PDS, right?
I believe throwing stuff into the dark here. I believe the way that jet streams and stuff find identities or people to look at is via the PLC, which is a public ledger of credentials. I believe that's the acronym. And
Hmm.
you could basically think of it as a blockchain that has all of the identities available and lists every changes that made. So like if you were to go to the PLC right now and look for my account, you could see that it started off as zayu.bsky.social. It was hosted on Blue Sky, but eventually I moved to another server. If you were to just rent a $5 VPS online or a Raspberry Pi and literally run the PDS admin CLI that stands up the PDS itself, once you make an account there, it is automatically into the network. You could just automatically make stuff. There's
Hmm.
no like central command that's like this PDS is a no.
The app view can decide this PDS is a no, but the Jetstream isn't worried about that. It's just saying this is a valid PDS, so I'm going to consume it.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Is there like private data yet? Seems like there couldn't be because of the way the protocol works, right?
So right now, no, there is no private data on the protocol right now. There are musings, like people have been talking about private data for the past year or two. And a Blue Sky engineer who works on the protocol just released a blog post talking about what they're thinking about as they look through permissioned data. That's what we're talking about here. And there's some musings about having a PDS, and then having like a secondary PDS, and then
Hmm.
having the app view like scoped, so that only authenticated app views can get the data. Right now, it's all up in the air. Nothing is concrete, but there are a lot of talk about it. It is definitely one of the main goals for the protocol, and as soon as that goes live, it's gonna go haywire.
Got it. Yeah, and a comment in the chat, Tynan Purdy is saying there isn't a Jetstream; it's a service one can run. So let me
Yes.
issue a correction there because I've been talking about it like it's this magical centralized thing, but no, it's just a part of the stack, and you have to
Hmm.
host one, which is
Yeah.
also cool because that does mean, like you've been saying, there's not like one person who can arbitrarily say, I'm done with all this, it's over. Like, I guess you could cause a massive disruption if everybody was relying on one particular Jetstream service and they shut it down. But
Yep.
it would a temporary disruption because you'd be able to switch over to a new Jetstream service and everything would resume, which is
Exactly.
pretty freaking cool. So I could literally talk about this all day. Um, but I don't want to keep you too long. And I also want to get into the companion episode here, which is we're going to do a Learn with Jason and actually build something. So let's maybe dig into this a little bit and make it happen. I want to first, before I completely wrap us here, let's talk about where should people go if they want to learn more about this? Like what are the right resources if somebody wants to just get their head around this to begin with?
So the docs are a great place to start. ATproto.com, ATproto.com. That is the official protocol website. It has a lot of musings, a lot of tutorials and guides and explanations as to like the specs of the entire infrastructure. If you want a more detailed but like a more of an introduction, I would
Mm-hmm.
recommend looking at a bunch of blogs by Dan Abramov, the React guy. His blog, overreacted.io, has a few posts that
Mm-hmm.
are really great introductions into the protocol. That would be where it's at, a social file system, and open social. Those three blogs are really great introductions for developers.
Put a link to the blog in the description, and if you're on the CodeTV Discord, you'll see it in the show links channel. Zayu, this has been amazing. Where should people go if they want to learn more about you?
Yeah, if you want to follow me, you can find my website at zayu.dev. I also stream live on Twitch, twitch.tv/zayu_dev. Also on the ATproto alternative live streaming site, stream.place/zayu.dev. And of course, I talk about everything 24/7 on Blue Sky, and that'll be blue sky, bsky.app/profile/zayu.dev.
Amazing. Zayu, thank you so much. And don't forget, we are doing a companion episode to this podcast that's going to be on Learn with Jason, where we're going to actually build something without Proto. So Go find that on codetv.dev. You can find the Web Dev Podcast on your favorite podcasting platform, or head over to codetv.dev and you can find all the links right there, or watch the replay. Zayu, thank you so much, and we will catch you all next time.